So this movie was different, not in a bad way, just I had seen bits and pieces on it from TikTok and I've heard good things about it years ago, but nothing like too crazy to spoil it. I figured it was just going to be maybe a basic movie with good acting from Hugh Jackman about him trying to save his daughter, but there was a lot more to it than that. There was a character that honestly really didn't need to be in the movie besides like literally one plot point. Hugh Jackman has a son in the movie, and he's played by the same dude that plays Clay in 13 Reasons Why, and he's in the first Goosebumps movie that I need to rewatch and review eventually, because I never reviewed it, because I watched it before I did movie reviews. But he's there for one line that matters to the plot, and he honestly isn't a big deal in the movie. It honestly probably wouldn't affect the plot much if he wasn't in it. They could have had the mom or the daughter. Well, not the daughter, really. The mom asked that, but he's there to ask one line. He wants a car, but, too expensive, even though he's saving his own money for it. And he's like, well, why don't we start, renting out your, grandpa's place or something? And he's like, it's too expensive to fix. It's too much of a shithole. Same thing I told your mom. They honestly could have just had the mom say something about wanting to buy a new car. Literally anything that would bring up that house. But they don't. He's really only there for that. I mean, he honestly just isn't a big deal. It's nothing against the actor. I just kind of felt out of place in this movie because he really wasn't important. We also have another family that loses their daughter with Hugh Jackman's daughter. I don't recognize the woman actor, but I do recognize the male actor. He was the dude that played War Machine in the first Iron Man movie and got clowned on because he started saying shit about like math and saying 1 + 1 = 1 or some stupid shit like that. Did not expect him to be in this movie. He performs decently for what we're given from him. I like that scene where he cries and he does like a really good acting performance in that scene when he's trying to convince Hugh not to torture this guy, and how he does miss his daughter too. But that's all he adds to the movie. There's even a scene that should be important and maybe should focus on him, even though he's not the main character, but they do it off screen, where they find bloody clothes of children and they show it to him and his wife off screen. Just off screen, and they walk out of the room completely quiet besides the mom crying, and they walk past Hugh, and that's kind of it. But we get like an extended scene with Hugh of him getting to see all the clothes until he recognizes if it's his daughter's or not. Honestly, they didn't have to make it very long for them, but they were kind of important to the plot. So could have just had them in there, showed them like one piece of clothing, and showed their reaction, give them some time to shine in the movie. But they didn't. They just kind of like go into a room, walk out crying, and we don't see much of them until they find their daughter. And they don't even really do much in that scene either. It's really about Hugh Jackman, which is obviously not a big deal because it's his movie. At points I had forgotten Jake Gyllenhaal was even in this movie because there's like chunks of the movie he's not in. Hugh Jackman just has like the most amazing performance in this movie. They always talk about like maybe 1 or 2 scenes from what I've seen. But he does a great job throughout the entire movie. I almost felt that he convinced the cop that he wasn't being a bad guy. And the scene where he's like, quit following me, I'm just trying to get drunk. If you watch that full scene, you'll understand what I'm saying. It really looks like he convinced that cop that he's not as guilty as the cop thinks he is. There's also, funnily enough, the main person that Hugh Jackman spends torturing throughout the movie turns out to be maybe a little bit more innocent than we think, and he's played by Paul Dano, who later goes on to play the Riddler, and Hugh Jackman has a line where he tells him to quit talking in riddles. I thought that was pretty funny. And then Polka Dot Man's in here, who, he's in the Suicide Squad. He was in Gotham. He did pretty good in that. And he was also in the Dark Knight movies that I maybe will rewatch eventually. I didn't really care for them. But yeah, he's in a lot of shit, and now he's in this movie too. He doesn't do too much. A lot of people edit or show his scene with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he goes to his house, even though he turns out to be innocent too. The big plot twist of the movie, even though it was kind of hinted at earlier, so I wasn't too surprised, is that there is a family of kidnappers. And Paul Dano's character and the dude that plays Polka Dot Man, because I don't remember his name right now, were both kidnapped. So they're not pedophiles. They have just, had a terrible childhood, and they've repressed that. So Paul Dano just wanted to play with the kids from what was shown throughout the movie. They kind of hint at that in the beginning of the movie, though he has a line that seems a bit creepy. But if you think about it more, he didn't mean it to come off that way. Because, as they say earlier in the movie, he has the brain of a 10-year-old child. So the whole time Hugh Jackman was torturing this guy that, yes, did kidnap his children, but wasn't going to do anything bad with them. He was going to let them go. His mother convinced him to not let them go. So he was not a bad person. And he just gets absolutely tortured and beaten throughout the movie. And then he gets reunited with his real family. And one of the other people, they keep close. And then he ends up killing himself in police custody. No idea why. I guess it got too much to him for some reason. But he had piles of children's clothes. They also kind of gloss over the fact that one of the characters is a straight up pedo. He's not a main character, but he does have a good plot purpose, and it's this priest. There's a line in the movie that Jake Gyllenhaal is going to go check all the sex offenders' house that live near that area. There's 9 of them. And one of them is a priest. And he calls him father and shit because religious shit or whatever. And, yeah, they just kind of gloss over that he's a sex offender. But he is important to the plot. He kills a man that brags about how many children he's kidnapped. He's kidnapped 16, and he kills them and locks them in this little cupboard in his basement or whatever. And that man turns out to be the husband of the wife. That's the big plot twist near the end, that she is the one that's been kidnapping these children and selling them or doing whatever she's doing with them. Some of them she's kept. I'm assuming the rest she sold, though they never specifically say that from what I remember. I did watch this movie a few days ago. And she's the big plot twist. She's the big bad guy, and it wasn't Paul Dano's character. And the movie ends with him using the whistle that was mentioned way early on in the movie, because this movie's almost 3 hours, and it was mentioned very early on. He finds his daughter's whistle and blows on it, and Jake Gyllenhaal looks in that area. He hears the whistle, and he turns to where he hears the whistle, and he's kind of skeptical about it, he's hearing things. But the whistle keeps blowing, so he keeps looking, and then the movie ends. So you just gotta wonder if he was saved or not. I'm guessing he was. But we can never know for sure, and that's a pretty damn good ending. honestly, really good movie, but not what I expected. There were parts that went on a little bit longer than I would have liked. And like I said, they focused way too much on the fact that Hugh Jackman's daughter was missing. Like, both the daughters were missing. There was easily one scene where it would not have been forced to mention the other child. He has the other father with him, trying to take care of the dude he thinks is a pedophile that's kidnapped his child. And he says, "Where is my daughter? Where is my daughter?" And he's breaking the sink and breaking the wall. While he has the other father there, and like literally before that scene, he tries to convince the guy to help him by talking about his daughter, saying, "Our kids they might be dying. We don't know. It's been 5 days. They don't have a lot of water." Stuff like that. He's talking about both their children and about the fact that they're both missing. But when he has the dad help him beat up the guy, he just doesn't really mention that fact at all. He's just like, my kid and my kid only. But, I get it. It's probably going to be a stronger feeling for him that his child is missing. But the guy is his friend. So you would think he would mention his kids too, especially since he was literally just talking about his kid being missing to convince him to help him. But overall, really good movie. Good performance from all the actors involved that did get to act. Once again, son, kind of pointless. He literally has a scene where he confronts his dad about him thinking he thinks his dad's like an alcoholic or something, which he was just trying to drink to cover up the fact that, that he was torturing a guy and he didn't want the cop to know. But he obviously can't tell his son that. That's the last scene we see with that kid for quite a bit. And I don't think he talks in any of the other scenes that we do see him in after that scene. He's just kind of standing there. And I really don't get why he came to that conclusion. Yes, he smelled the alcohol. But his dad's been leaving for a long time and he just now started doing it. So it's not like his dad's always been drinking for him to come up with that. He just started doing it, but he's like, "Oh, you're always coming home smelling like alcohol." Like, how? It's only been maybe once or twice, and he's been doing this for days. But okay. Yeah, that's about it.